And welcome in to Cut the Killer Carbs with Dr. Justin Anderson right here. Metabolic Coaching. Check out the website, metabolic-coaching.net. Of course, along the way, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call at any time throughout the broadcast. 806-745-5800. That's 806-745-5800. Call or text, that's for sure. Let me say good morning once again to Dr. Justin Anderson. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Buenos dias, as they say here in Texas.
Yes, good day to you. It's all good, right? Of course, if you're especially cutting the killer carbs out of your diet, you're feeling better. Burns left. Burns was doing some of this, of course. And, and I said, okay, Burns, how you doing on that? And he goes, well, I kind of slipped this weekend. I had chicken fried steak and a lot of gravy. And I said, yeah, I've done that at Cattle Baron on Fridays too, because they have a really smoking, really good chicken fried steak with extra gravy. And I do it, doctor, and I feel guilty afterwards, but at the time, it's so wonderful.
I used to always wonder, I was like, why does Wade always talk about the chicken fry at Cattle Baron? It's because they're a sponsor.
No, it's true,
it's
though.
It's because they're a sponsor.
It's true. Well, that's part of it, but it's true. It's really, they bring it out on this platter.
So
it's about this big, and people can't see because it's radio.
Do they give
you
like an extra chicken fried steak every time you mention it on the air?
It's just massive. No, normally, initially when I first, they've been a sponsor of mine for years. Okay. But for years, they when I first set it up, they were, hey, talk about our steaks and prime rib. I'm like, okay. But then one day I'm over there having lunch, and I said, well, I'll try their chicken fry. I hadn't tried it before. And they have that in a chicken fried chicken, too. But so I've tried both. And both of them just knocked it out of the park. And I thought, man, I need to be talking about this. They haven't prompted me to do so, but I am, because it's really good. But it's not cutting the killer carbs.
That's right.
Yeah. Not with all that gravy and breading and stuff. I guess the chicken would be a little bit more healthy, maybe, than the
meat, man.
Well, I don't know. No, is it all the same?
The meat is fine. I mean, I have no concern about whether you eat lean meat or not lean meat. The truth is, so they've told us to eat chicken breast because chicken breast has less fat. In my opinion, you can totally forget that because the more fat you eat, the better. And the reason is this: carbohydrates spike your insulin level, and insulin causes you to store fat. So I'm talking about if you're interested in losing weight or reversing your diabetes or improving your blood pressure. So carbohydrates, like the breading on the chicken or the mashed potatoes or the gravy, that's carbs, and carbs. That spikes your insulin, and it causes you to gain weight, gain fat, which is a bad thing.
Yes.
Now, after carbohydrate, protein itself does cause some increase in insulin. So protein, you can eat a lot of protein, and you can still gain weight. You can still gain fat from just lean protein. So there are three macronutrients. There's carbs. We talked about that. It spikes insulin the most. There's protein. We talked about that. It spikes insulin some. Generally, it tends to be less than the refined carbohydrates. And then the third thing is fat, the third macronutrient. And fat does not spike your insulin levels like the carbohydrates or the protein does. So fat is the safest thing you can eat. So if you're going to go to the store and you're going to buy ground beef and you're on this low carbohydrate diet, the diet's called LCHF. LC stands for low carbohydrate and HF stands for high fat. So you have to increase the fat. So if you're going to buy ground beef, you want to buy something like the 80-20. You could even buy 75-25. You want the fattier ground beef, not the leaner. The same thing goes if you're going to buy a steak. When you buy a steak, you want a fatty steak like a ribeye. Not only does it taste delicious, but the more fat means it spikes your insulin less. If you're going to eat eggs, you want to eat whole eggs instead of eating egg whites because you want the fat is in the fat and the cholesterol, the things that you want, are in the egg yolk, and so you want the egg yolks. I've even had people who they really needed to focus on not having too much protein in their diet and having more fat. And I would say, eggs, when you cook eggs, it's going to be 2 yolks to 1 white. So that way you get more fat, less protein. If you're going to go to Rudy's Barbecue or some local barbecue joint and you're going to get brisket, then you want the moist beef. That's the beef, the brisket where they still have the fat on it. That way, when you eat your meal, instead of spiking your sugar and your insulin levels, you'll actually see them drop. I've had clients I had this one nice client, Debbie. We interviewed Debbie here in the studio, and she would say, yeah, when I go to Rudy's and I eat the moist beef, I measure my blood sugar before I eat, and it's, say, something like 100. I measure it after I eat, and it's 85. Even an hour after she eats, when the blood sugar usually spikes. And that's because on a low carbohydrate with lots of fat, you can actually lower your blood sugars by eating instead of raising your blood sugars. So carbs are the worst for spiking insulin and weight gain. What are carbs? Carbs are wheat, anything made out of wheat, bread, pasta, and then the other foods that are carbs are things like potatoes, oatmeal, cereal grains like corn, oats, rice, that sort of thing. And so that's why also sugars, fruit juices, all those things make the list of the killer carbs. Now, one thing that doesn't make the list of the killer carbs are beans. And what I usually tell people is you can have beans, but count the carbs in your beans and keep the total carbs for the day less than 20. And it usually comes to about a 1/4 cup of beans at a sitting, and a 1/4 cup of beans is about 4 tablespoons. So it's not a lot. Okay.
Oh, I ate like 2 bowls of beans. I like black beans, right?
Yeah. And however, the thing is that beans, they do increase your blood sugar and your insulin level some, but they do it over a slower period of time. They don't spike the sugar as high, they don't spike the insulin as high, and it's kind of drawn out over time. So they didn't make the list of killer carbs, although they do contain some carbohydrates. And that brings me to what a caller had mentioned a couple of weeks ago, had called in and mentioned Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Body. And I don't agree with everything in the 4-Hour Body book, but what I do, I'm going through the book, I'm taking out the really good parts that I can. His book really does focus on beans, and he calls it the slow carb diet, because beans are the carbohydrate that you can have that's very that slowly releases sugar and insulin. It's
Would it
not
be
a
similar
big
to like
spike.
carbs and vegetables, maybe that kind of deal, or what?
Basically, the diet is a very low carbohydrate diet, because he says don't eat anything that is white or could be white, white means white bread,
Gravy.
white potatoes, gravy,
Oh.
breading, etc.
Say it so.
Yeah, so it's a very low carbohydrate diet, but
Right.
he adds in their beans, and for various reasons, for digestion and etc. But anyway, on the slow carb diet, and it's very similar to what we do at Metabolic Coaching. I don't tell people to eat that much beans. He also does that. You asked if it's similar to vegetables, and so yes, you can have a ton of vegetables, green leafy vegetables. He gives you a list of them that are very low carbohydrate vegetables. Corn, by the way, is not a vegetable. It's a cereal grain. Corn is a grain, and so it's very high in carbohydrates. Also in his book, he mentions exercise. I know you ask me about exercise all the time. You're a big fan of exercise, and some of the listeners and some of my clients have been asking me about exercise. And he calls it the 4-hour body, because the idea is you don't have to spend 10 hours a week at the gym to have the body that you want. So
Okay.
instead of that, instead of spending 10 hours at the gym, you can number one, change your diet to this kind of low carbohydrate diet. Number two, do targeted exercise at the time when it's most beneficial. And the kind of fascinating thing is that he's done some research and read some papers and experimented on himself and other people. And the most effective time he's found to exercise is for 60 to 90 seconds. You exercise immediately before you eat. You exercise immediately before you eat because it brings glucose transporters to your muscles. And so what you want after you eat, you want whatever sugar there is in your bloodstream to go into your muscle to build muscle. Instead of going into you don't want that glucose going into your fat cells to build fat. So you want to build muscle instead of building fat. And to do that, you exercise for 60 to 90 seconds before you eat. What kind of exercise? Just air squats. Air squats, or he calls it tricep wall press or something like that. So you can do one of those two things, and you do it for 60 to 90 seconds. That moves the transporters to your muscles so that the sugar that's in your bloodstream from your meal goes to your muscles to build muscle instead of building fat. And then you do 60 to 90 seconds of exercise again an hour and a half after the meal. And so, again, you can just do air squats or something for a minute or a minute and a half.
I know you're
going
to try that, aren't you?
Yeah, man, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it.
That's awesome.
I like, man, I love to experiment with this stuff on myself. And one thing that I do with clients is I don't ask them to do anything that I am not trying or that I'm not doing or that I haven't tried myself.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
So yeah, I'm gonna absolutely try it. One of the things that, for instance, apple cider vinegar, taking 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar immediately before bed has been shown to decrease morning blood sugars and improve insulin resistance. Those are both good things for weight loss and control your diabetes. And so I do that, every night. I take 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. I just pour it in a cup, drink it, and then I chase it with some water, like I'm taking shots of tequila or something like that. And so I do it. And
do you think there's benefit?
Yeah, I think there's benefit. Yeah.
You do. And I remember some lady had asked you about this, and so you started trying it, and you thought, oh, yeah, it does work.
Well, yeah, I've done it for a long time. There was a lady who asked about it, and there's a...
It was on Facebook or something.
Right, it was on Facebook. There's a recipe where you juice lemon. So you do lemon juice, water, apple cider vinegar, and cinnamon. And you make that into a drink. You drink it before bed. And I've had clients do that drink before bed and lower their blood sugars in the morning. So I love this whole metabolic coaching deal because, I get lots of feedback from my clients. And if it's something that works, that helps people lower their blood sugar or lose weight, we can keep it. We can add it to the program. It's another tool that people can use. There's so many things out there that people recommend that just don't work. And people try them and they don't work. And those things don't get added to the program,
Give me some examples of some of the things that are floating around the internet that people, and you see this. Here's the thing, doctor. You see all kinds of stuff floating around on Facebook especially. And it's usually a sponsored type ad.
The biggest
thing, and it'll show
doesn't...
some muscled up guy or muscled up girl, and it'll say, "Do this. It'll grow hair on a cue ball, and you'll look like me." And people are like, "Oh, brother, here we go again."
I'll tell you, the biggest things that don't work are supplements that cost $300 a month. And I've had there are lots of different supplements that they're selling now, which are supposed to be these ketones. They're supposed to be ketones that you can take, and you kind of keep your diet the same, and they're supposed to keep you in ketosis and help you to lose weight. Well, I mean, I've had clients who've taken them, who've tried them, who've taken them, and just not seen any results because it's not. What is ketosis? Ketosis means your body is burning fat for fuel instead of burning sugar for fuel.
Okay.
And so the way that works is you cut the carbohydrates in the diet down low enough. And I tell clients, we go all the way down to 20 or less net carbohydrates per day. That way, what is a net carbohydrate? A carbohydrate is just a gram of sugar, okay? Printed on any package is the total carbohydrates. You subtract out the fiber, and the total carbs minus the fiber equals the net carbs. Well, your body is going to take whatever the net carbohydrates are and turn that into blood sugar. And so it's all about just controlling your sugar, which controls insulin levels, etc. So I tell people go down to less than 20 net carbohydrates a day, which means that they get less than 20 grams of sugar going into their bloodstream a day. So their body says there's not a lot of sugar around right now, so I need to burn fat. And burning fat, number one, switches you over to losing weight. That's how you get rid of the weight, by burning fat. And number two, it boosts your energy level. Because the fat is a much better fuel. Your brain runs 25% more efficiently on fat. Your heart runs 25% 50% more efficiently on fat. And so people feel better. They have more energy. What was the question? Did you have?
Well, the grow hair on the cue ball stuff. You answered
yeah,
that.
right.
I mean, people taking all the, and there's network marketing companies out there that are everybody wants to lose weight and get back into shape.
Right.
Everybody. Who doesn't want to be in shape and within proper range of weight?
And so,
I mean, and there's so many companies out there trying to market and capitalize on that, when what we're talking about is, it's pretty simple if you think about it. I mean, this is what you do and what you don't do, and if you do these things, then you're going to be okay. But I mean, everything from, NutriSlim to Weight Watchers to whatever it is out there, everybody's trying to market to that group, saying my product's the best out there since sliced bread, which sliced bread is bad for you. You like how I did that?
Yeah, that was good.
Pretty good, huh?
So the problem with those products is that they'll sell you this called exogenous ketones, and so you take the ketones, they go to your bloodstream, and now you have ketones in your bloodstream like you were burning fat, even though you're not really necessarily burning fat. So what you should do if you want ketones in your bloodstream is cut the carbs out, and that will do it, and you'll have high ketones in your bloodstream, not because you're taking a $300 a month supplement. Instead, it'll be because you're just buying regular groceries, you're not eating the carbs, and you're burning fat.
There was I don't know if you heard yesterday's show, but it was interesting. We on Dr. Edwards' show, we had a guy on. He's done 4 shows in a row. Interesting guy. The Morley Robbins was on the program.
I caught part of it.
Okay, so Morley's talking about part of the reason, and it was talking about other health-related concerns that people get into with inflammation and stuff like that. But his whole argument, basically, on yesterday's broadcast was that we have, since World War II, have injected unnecessary amounts of iron into our diet.
Mm-hmm.
And because of this, and the body's like, okay, we got loads of iron in our blood, and we don't know what to do with all this iron.
Right.
And so because of that, and because the iron is not being burn off or spin out, and we're low on magnesium and low on copper, that's contributing to a lot of ill health effects. Mm-hmm. One of them being primarily weight gain. And so he was talking about this, and he said, what's interesting? He said the people that are on the low carbohydrate diets out there, and he referred to Dr. Atkinson about that, because that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Right.
He said one of the things that he didn't realize at the time, and that my research shows, is that people who are on a low carbohydrate diet, that they're actually, when they get off the grains and they get off the breads and the pastas and stuff like this, they're actually reducing that iron load in their system. Mm-hmm. And that iron load, as it reduces, and then if they're eating a lot of vegetables and things that have high magnesium content in it, they inadvertently didn't understand or didn't know that what's happening is the body's self-regulating at this point and saying, "Oh, okay."
And that's why one
and
of the
so
first
it was really interesting because what he's saying and kind of what you're saying, you're coming at it from 2 different angles, but at the meeting in the middle, it makes perfect sense about how that you achieve the correct weight of the human body. Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting. I thought it was a fascinating point.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. That's why one of the first things on his protocol, his whole list of stop, right? And one of them, and the whole list of things to start, and one of the things that you start, you stop a low-fat diet, and instead you start what he calls I think a traditional diet, or I don't know what he calls it, but it's basically a low carbohydrate, high fat diet. So you stop the
got the killer carbs.
You stop the low fat, and you got the killer carbs. Yeah, it's the same thing. And in addition to that, there are certain supplements that you take. And I'll tell you that I'm doing the Morley Robbins protocol myself. I'm taking those supplements, eating beef liver once a week.
Primal beef. The primal.
I don't do primal beef.
You come on.
I don't do primal beef because if I'm going to eat something that tastes like liver, it should be liver. I'm not a fan of liver. I don't want to eat a burger that tastes like liver. You know, if I'm going to eat a burger, it's going to taste like a burger.
Yeah.
And if it's going to be liver day, then I'm going to eat liver. But it's, you know, the Weston A. Price Foundation has done some fabulous research on traditional diets. And Weston A. Price was a dentist, and back in the 1920s and the 30s, he traveled all over the world looking at cultures that had very good health. They had very straight teeth. He was a dentist. They had good health, straight teeth. They didn't have any of the modern diseases of civilization. They didn't have cancer. They weren't plagued by heart disease and obesity and diabetes. They didn't have any of those things. And you know, he tried to piece together what were the common things in all of these diets, and whether it was from the Swiss Alps to the Aborigines of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
What were the commonalities between those two diets that allowed those to be healthy people that didn't have modern diseases? And some of the big things were they got a lot of animal-based vitamin A called retinol, and you get that from the beef liver, you know, like Morley Robbins recommends. They had a lot of vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is the vitamin that helps tell calcium to go into your bones instead of going into your arteries and hardening your arteries. They got that from grass-fed meats and from fermented foods. They got a lot of vitamin D, and the vitamin D would come from seafood, or and so what? Anyway, it would come from seafood or something else, like also from the grass-fed butter, I think. And so you know, that's a lot of the Morley Robbins protocol. Is you take your cod liver oil. That's going to give you your animal-based vitamin A. It's going to give you your K2. You eat your beef liver. That's going to give you vitamin A in the correct proportions with vitamin D. And so, you know, I like to tie all of it together and take what are really the most beneficial parts and put them together. And people will ask me, what supplement should I take? You know, should I take vitamin D, or should I take calcium, or should I take magnesium? And really, I think the Morley Robbins protocol is the best thing that ties it all. He calls it the root cause protocol. He doesn't like it being called Morley Robbins protocol. But the root cause protocol, and you can find it at gotmag.org. That's gotmag.org. It ties all that together. And really, you know, what supplements should you take? Well, if you want to know what supplements you should take, why don't you get the blood testing done, get the hair tissue mineral analysis done, and see where you're starting. Then you can decide which supplements to take on the protocol, and then you can get it retested 6 months or 12 months later.
Well, and again, he advocates for this, and you're right. I mean, but it also shows that a lot of people who initially do that test are shocked. I mean, literally shocked on their iron levels, on how much iron they have floating around in their system. And we have just been inundated over the years and trained. It's almost like the notion that was being pushed for many, many, many years, that eggs were high in cholesterol and you should stay away from eggs,
right,
or bacon and this kind of stuff. And then come to find out that was exactly the wrong information,
right,
about how that bacon and eggs was demonized. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, like with the iron stuff, I mean, everything's fortified with iron. Like we needed all this iron. And actually he said that was a major disaster on the American diet and food industry,
and I think
to be sticking in all that iron.
One of the things that he has mentioned is that the iron that they add is not organic iron; it's iron filings. And so you can take some sort of your favorite breakfast cereal that says it's made with fortified wheat. You take that breakfast cereal, put it in a blender dry, and just grind it up into a powder. Then you put that into a plastic Ziploc baggie, add some water to it to make a nice slurry, swish it around a lot, and then you can take a magnet and just put the magnet on top of the Ziploc bag, and you'll have this nice little path of iron filings that comes to the top and just follows around your magnet. So we've added iron, but the iron that we've added is not necessarily maybe the best form of iron to add.
Right.
Iron filings, I would just say humans are probably not very well adapted to eating iron filings, basically.
Really, doctor?
Yeah, and so I've done that experiment with my kids at home. I'm like, okay, look, here's the iron filings in the cereal. Isn't that great?
Yeah, that is kind of interesting, isn't it? But again, he said that because that iron in there interacts, and he said people on the Atkins diet, he said they inadvertently are doing the right things to lower the iron intake to help detoxify, let the liver flush that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes, and then the copper and magnesium uptake is also critically important here as it pertains to weight loss. And so he goes through that, and I found, and so it really is weird how all that ties in.
It all ties in, and
I found that but it is fascinating.
So we were talking about the drink where you mixed apple cider vinegar with the lemon juice,
yes,
with the cinnamon.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Part of his protocol is adrenal cocktail. You do it twice a day. What is it? You juice an orange or a lemon or a lime. That gives you your whole food vitamin C. And so, which is totally different from ascorbic acid. That ties in. I can't really find anything in his protocol that I don't like. So
yeah, okay. So we do the Morley Robbins plus cut the killer carbs, and we're well on our way. Now, if they have a stumbling block, then we get into the intermittent fasting and in combination with
that's another thing.
Exercise.
I do Tuesday. I do a 24-hour fast on Tuesday, Thursday. Why? Is it because I need to lose weight?
No, you don't.
No, I don't need to lose weight.
You're skinny as a rail.
I do a Tuesday, Thursday fast because I do it with my clients who are in the program. So that if anyone says, "Oh, well, I'm going to do Tuesday, Thursday fasting," well, I'm doing it right there with you,
Mm-hmm.
And there's some days like it's hard. I remember this from a Jason Fung interview. It's hard to fast when you're sick. Like when you're sick, you're just hungry. And there's some days on a Tuesday or a Thursday, like if I'm sick, coming down with a cold or something, I'll just eat. I'll break my fast. It's not going to work that day, and that's fine.
But you do a 24-hour one. In other words, like you'll eat
dinner
Monday, and then you don't eat again dinner till dinner Tuesday.
That's correct.
That's a 24-hour fast. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why do you do that?
I do. I like them.
To lower your insulin levels.
I do it because it saves money.
It does save money.
Yeah.
And so
seriously,
at the follow-up meeting this last week, we were talking about some people. If you've reached a plateau, some of the things, a weight loss plateau on a low carbohydrate diet, some of the things you can do is cut out the nuts, because sometimes it's nuts that cause weight gain, or cut out the dairy. So it could be too many nuts, it could be dairy, because dairy raises insulin levels higher than most foods.
Cheese. See,
yeah, something like cheese.
I love cheese.
So it could be the nuts or the dairy, or it could be too much low-carb fruit, like berries. And so when you're fasting, guess what? You're not eating the nuts. You're not eating the berries. You're not eating the low-carb fruit. So, I mean, it works.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with that.
Something else you can do if you reach a plateau is do Maria Emmerich's 30-day ketogenic cleanse. And her 30-day ketogenic cleanse, she gives you meal plans, recipes. The whole thing is in a book. And basically, there's no nuts, no nut flours, no dairy in there. So, I mean, she cuts those things out. And I've had clients who've been stuck, who do that program, they get unstuck. Another thing is potassium. And so part of the Morley Robbins program.
Now, Coach Leach was caught on camera eating a big banana, and I posted it on Facebook. Did you see that?
No.
It's hilarious looking. But anyway, I'm just saying for the record. He's eating a big banana before the big game.
And see, that's what people think about. They think, hey, banana is potassium. The problem with banana is 32 grams of net carbohydrates, which is 32 grams of sugar along with your potassium.
Ooh.
So you're taking 32 grams of sugar with your potassium. That's a hard way to get it. Food-wise, an avocado is a better source of potassium, and it's got less carbohydrates. It's got more fat. It's monounsaturated fat, which most cardiologists agree monounsaturated fat is great for you. So you and your cardiologist could both be happy with an avocado. But part of the Morley Robbins program is that you take cream of tartar. It's part of your adrenal cocktail. You take that twice a day. Well, it's potassium. The cream of tartar is potassium combined with something. I don't remember exactly. But you take that twice a day. Well, I just got an article yesterday, and in that article he talks about people who are on a low-salt diet. So we've been told to be on a low-salt diet for 30 years, right? Cut the salt, cut the salt. You need low sodium.
Right.
Well, a low salt diet, your body doesn't have enough salt, so your body needs to hold on to the salt. So what your body does to hold on to salt is it raises insulin levels. Raising insulin levels causes your kidneys to hold on to more salt because you're eating this low salt diet. Well, insulin is the fat storage hormone. So you're eating a low salt diet, which makes you fat because it's raising your insulin levels. Not only part of holding on to salt is not just holding on to sodium chloride. You have all sorts of salts, all sorts of electrolytes in your blood, and one of those electrolytes is potassium. And so your potassium levels are getting too low, as well as your sodium. So your body makes more insulin to hold on to the potassium. And so Doctors Finney and Volek, they put people on very low carbohydrate diets, and they supplement them with an additional 3 to 5 grams of salt daily. So they give them more salt on a low carbohydrate diet. And Maria Emmerich, who does the 30-day ketogenic cleanse, she does what's called a well-formulated ketogenic diet, and she supplements people with potassium. So by adding potassium and adding salt to your diet, you actually lower insulin levels because your kidneys aren't working so hard to try and hold on to all this salt and all this potassium. So, and it's part of the Morley Robbins protocol, potassium, So potassium and salt.
But I didn't know that until you mentioned it. Now that's something I hadn't heard before about the potassium levels in an avocado are actually just as good as a banana without all the sugar. I didn't know that.
Avocado is a good source of potassium.
I did not know that till today. Mm-hmm. See, I learned something new.
Yeah, and so what?
I learn something new every day on this, every time on these health shows. I'm so privileged to be able to sit in here with all these doctors I have on every week and hear the latest and greatest stuff out there that will work if you implement it. Now, if you don't implement it, it ain't gonna work, right?
In all of these, there's 100 low carbohydrate diet books out there, and in all these books, I mean, they'll basically recommend potassium supplements because potassium supplements, they can help with your weight loss along the way. They help if you have leg cramps. They help normalize your salt balance, all these sort of things. Or what some people do is they put an avocado on everything they eat. So it's like avocados in the morning on their eggs, it's avocados at lunch on their salmon, it's avocados at dinner on their burger, and so it's potassium all the time.
I like avocados, and I mean, my wife, her being a health coach and all, we're always eating avocados around the house. And she, that's fine. I like them. I love guacamole with some lemon juice. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, it's much.
Yep.
I mean, you mix that in with some freshly made salsa, vegetables and all that kind. I mean,
you're golden.
It's wonderful, But again, you got to watch the chip intake and all that. But I'm just saying, I mean, that for a good, I guess.
You know what you can do?
You could put that on a chicken fried steak, and it would. Just kidding.
Killing me, Wade. No,
I'm just kidding.
What we did is we went to a church function, and we were bringing food to the church function, and so we brought some queso, guacamole, salsa, and pork rinds.
Pork rinds.
Pork rinds, because pork rinds are going to be your low carbohydrate chip. And I can't.
I didn't even think of that.
Pork rinds are your low carb chip, man.
Wow. What am I? I mean, there for the longest time, I was eating the blue corn organic chips, thinking, okay, this is the old ancient corn, blue corn. They're expensive, they taste great, but I thought it's better than the junk you get, like say Doritos. But I never thought about
pork rinds.
Pork rinds as the chip, and I like pork rinds.
I'll
do that. That's awesome.
I really like reading the old Atkins book. I think it was first
published
in 73.
Do you have one? No.
No, I don't have a cookbook.
Well, you need to put that that kind of stuff together so I can, give me some ideas here. For me, I mean, pork rinds is wonderful.
If you
I didn't think about that.
Pork rinds, you would have been pork rinds and avocados.
Well, here's the thing, Doc. I'm always looking for a midnight snack. What I've been doing, I say midnight snack. I'll usually
in the evening.
I'll do my workout. Okay, I do that. I'm all about trying to stay in shape. Cardiovascularly and all that. Anyway, I do the workout, eat my dinner, which is a very clean, healthy dinner because my wife makes it. She doesn't mess around. But then about 8 o'clock, I'm looking around like, okay, I just had some cod, or I had some fish, or some avocado, and I'm like, I want to get something else to snack on about 8, 9 o'clock. And I've been reaching lately for beef jerky, which is fine, right?
Right.
But I mean, or I may do an egg or two in the skillet, I'll do something like that. Trying to stay low carb, trying to follow the protocol, all right? But now that you mentioned it, I could add pork rinds and that salsa to the mix.
Yep.
Because you'll get burnt out over time. What I've noticed is this: if you just stick with one food item, you'll be like, okay, I'm not gonna do another egg tonight for my little snack. That's ridiculous. And then you'll kind of, I'll grab some ice cream.
But people are,
you know what I mean?
People are creatures of habit, and so if you find some snacks that work for you, low carb snacks, you can stick with them. But yeah, some variety definitely helps.
I like the pork rind thing. It just didn't dawn on me. But yeah, I could do pork rinds and that guacamole with lemon, make that up as kind of a dip, or even salsa and pork rind, as opposed to the blue corn chip, right?
There you go.
And by the way, I stopped buying the blue corn chips because of the carb situation.
You know what else you can use for a chip? You want to dip something in queso?
Yeah, what?
Bacon.
Well, yeah. What would you just put it in the microwave, or what do we do? How do we?
Well,
do that?
you have to have cooked bacon.
You could cook it normal.
Cooked bacon is good to dip in your queso. Instead of queso and chips, you just have queso and bacon.
Well, that's an idea too. Yes, I like the pork rind better, but yeah, I would. But you want to make it easy, right?
Right.
So
that's right.
You get into the
Something
bacon.
You'll do.
Yeah, bacon. I would be like, okay, waiting for it to on the griddle and skillet, and of course my wife uses bacon grease for everything. I mean, like as far as like when she cooks eggs, like instead of spraying Pam or something, what she thinks is just noxious,
Right.
She'll use a little bacon grease there to make sure it doesn't stick on the skillet.
Yeah, and
I'm like, okay.
That's a good point.
She saves all of it.
If you're gonna cook something on the skillet, if you're gonna fry or heat something real hot, you need to use a saturated fat, a saturated fat like bacon grease.
Yeah.
Or you can use lard. Bacon grease, lard. You can use coconut oil. You can even use butter. Butter smokes because of the protein, not because of the fat. So you can use ghee, which is a clarified butter. It's just a butter fat. It has most of the protein removed.
I like that. I mean, the bacon grease. Okay. I mean, I'm okay with that.
It's great because it makes everything taste like bacon.
Well, it's true.
Right. That's
I mean, I guess if you were to make up a big bunch of bacon, like a whole half-pound slab of the stuff, and then kind of break it in half or whatever and use it for chips after it's been...
Well, the problem is that's an expensive way to do chips, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, bacon's... let's face it. I mean, you go to the store...
I'm just saying you could do that as a treat sometime. It's your birthday, so you get bacon for your chips.
But the pork rind thing, though, is kind of interesting. Although, if you go get pork rinds, you want to make sure it is just pork rinds, no noxious chemicals added to, because, sometimes... people see this in the grocery store and they think, oh, yeah, pork rinds. And then you get to reading on the label, and it's full of chemicals that they've added to the pork rind.
Well,
yellow numbers, red number 5 or something.
The one thing that you don't really know what the pork rinds are fried in. And so, if they're fried in hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, that's not a good thing. So I wouldn't eat pork rinds all the time. But pork rinds can be a substitute for chips, and they're a good low-carb substitute. It helps get people started. You can also use pork rinds as a breading. Instead of using white flour and you're going to fry something, you use pork rinds as a breading on the outside. That tastes great. So there are a lot of different uses for pork rinds.
Okay, well, I'll stick with it. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
In making pork rinds, you just put them in the oven and bake them. You don't fry them in nothing. You bake them.
Pork rinds.
Very slow until they're crispy. That's what you do.
Okay.
That's perfect.
But I've made pork rinds a lot because, we lived on farm 1,000 years ago. But I can't have lettuce and that kind of stuff because I don't digest it for some reason. So I substituted. I like crunchy anything forever. I just love crunchy. If you like celery, it makes a real good crunchy to dip with.
Yep.
But you have to like celery. Some people just hate the taste of celery. But if you're eating celery with any kind of good queso or something, shoot, you don't taste celery no more. You just taste that good old queso.
That's a good point.
Or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
You just bake. You just take and scrape all the hair off that whenever that you kill the pork, and we usually killed it after the first freeze, real big freeze. We'd kill the pigs, and you dip them in that hot water and scrape all the hair off of them. And then you take and put them in a pan, a good cast iron type pan that'll cook a long time, or a steel pan. And it just renders all the fat out, and all you have left is that good old crispy taste. Oh, they're heavenly. If they're homemade.
There you go.
I don't like them out of a sack.
That's nice. I appreciate the call. Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea, but she brings up a great point about, I mean, I never thought about this, too. I guess I should have. I don't know what I'm thinking. I mean, I love broccoli. A lot of people don't I don't like broccoli, but you could, broccoli and cauliflower, stuff like that, raw vegetables. Mm-hmm. Why not that be your chip? Really. I mean, and like she's saying, like the celery stuff, I mean, that's fine too, I guess.
I want to mention something about that because a lot of clients a lot of people who are overweight, they also have thyroid disease, and along with their diabetes and whatever. And so, things that you can do to help your thyroid: number one, avoid the wheat and the gluten. Be 100% gluten-free, because when your immune system makes antibodies to attack gluten, those antibodies often cross-react with your thyroid, lower your thyroid function. Number two, you talked about the raw broccoli and the raw cauliflower. Those are cruciferous vegetables. Something called a cruciferous vegetable. And so you can look up a list of cruciferous vegetables, and the cruciferous vegetables are goitrogens, which means they lower your thyroid function if they're raw. So things like, if you have thyroid disease, things like broccoli or cauliflower or any cruciferous vegetable, just look up a list. They're best eaten cooked, because once you eat them cooked, then they don't affect your thyroid function as much. But if you eat them raw, they do. So a lot of people, they'll go on a low carbohydrate diet or whatever kind of diet and think, well, I'm going to eat a lot of these raw vegetables. And if they eat a lot of these raw vegetables, it'll make their thyroid function worse. So things you should cook.
But what if you have a normal thyroid? Is it okay then?
Probably. It's okay. I wouldn't eat them all the time. I wouldn't eat them raw all the time. I would eat them, I guess, cooked more than I would eat them raw.
I love them raw. I do. I'll eat cauliflower and broccoli all the time. I like it, but I don't. But again, I'm not on thyroid medication. I'm not on Synthroid or anything like that either. I don't have low thyroid or hypothyroidism or anything like that.
Yeah. So if you have low thyroid, just be careful of that, because you don't want to be eating things that are going to make your low thyroid worse. Yeah.
I never thought of it that way. I didn't know that, but I guess a lot of people who finally start to wake up and say, I'm really a basket case here, and I've got to get my health back on track. And you're right. I mean, a lot of times that by the time they recognize that they are in trouble, they've already pre-diabetic, they've got thyroid issues, they've got a lot of combinations happening there. They might even have irritable bowel. I mean, on and on and on. So it stands to reason that you think, oh, well, that's healthy over here. Eat this raw broccoli, but it may have some kind of thing going on.
Yeah, so raw cruciferous vegetables, not a good idea with thyroid disease. Avoid the wheat, the gluten if you have thyroid disease. 100% gluten free.
Mm-hmm.
And also, your general medical doctor is usually going to put you on a thyroid medication like generic levothyroxine, and generic levothyroxine contains only T4, which is the storage form of thyroid hormone. And some people, their liver doesn't convert storage T4 into the active form of thyroid hormone T3 very well. And so they may be taking their thyroid medication like they're supposed to, and their blood tests look okay, but they still have low thyroid.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm a bigger fan of things like NP thyroid or Nature Throid, which contain both T4 and T3. And the best way to track whether or not your thyroid medication is adequate is to track it at home. Is first thing in the morning when you get up, before you get out of bed, before you move around, to take your temperature under your armpit. Go ahead, take your temperature. It ought to be about 97.6. And if you're running significantly lower, like 94.9, then your thyroid medication probably needs to be adjusted, and you should discuss that with your doctor. If you're running significantly higher temperature under your armpit, like 99 or 98.9,
that means you're running about 104.
then you probably need your thyroid medication
I'm kind of a
adjusted
hot
down.
commodity there, doctor.
Whether or not you're hot, I'll leave that up to the health coach to decide.
Just kidding. Well, anyway, yeah. So the point taken is that but that's when you get, before you get out of bed and you check that. I've not done that. So I don't know, but I know that once you start, I'm in my late 40s, and once you cross 50 and you start getting up in age, I mean, people tend to say, man, well, I don't know what's going on with me now. I'm dizzy all the time. I can't figure it out. A lot of it, I guarantee you, you're going to have to radically change what you've been doing. You can get away with a lot of stuff when you're younger, eating crazy and all that, but when you get a little bit older, it doesn't work anymore, and you're going to have to make some significant dietary changes or live in misery, and who wants to do that? But again, I think it goes back to the educational piece, though. If people just, I take it for granted because I'm like, oh, I sit here all the time and hear all this stuff. But you'd be surprised when you talk to people, just ordinary people, that they have no blanking clue on any of this stuff. They've never heard it before. They don't know anything about it, but they know they feel like crap and they want to feel better. But they don't know how to get there.
I had no clue either. I really thought that doing things like buying whole grain bread was healthy and was going to help me lose weight, or trying to buy organic all the time was healthy and was going to try to help me lose weight. And it didn't work. That didn't work. What helped was cut out the grains, eat some beef, eat some green leafy vegetables, get rid of the buns, even the whole grains. That's what helped. And then after I started doing that kind of diet, then I did all the reading, and there's books and books and books out there. So if you're totally clueless, don't feel bad. I was totally clueless too until a few years ago when I had my eyes open. Yeah,
no doubt about it. Well, again, check it out, metabolic-coaching.net. Of course, you can follow us on Facebook as well. Cut the Killer Carbs on Facebook. Cut the Killer Carbs on Facebook. But you can always reach out to us directly as well, 448-0322, 448-0322. Dr. Justin Anderson, of course, Metabolic Coaching. Anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up today? I think the takeaway for me is pork rinds. I like that. I'm liking the pork rind thing.
Well, we talked about a few
I'll have to get it
things.
through Health Coach approved, though, over there. She'll be out here in a few minutes. I'll run it by her because she may blow me up on that one. But I don't know. We'll see.
We talked about a few things you can do if you reach a weight loss plateau on a low-carb diet, like cut the dairy, cut the nuts, do the Maria Emmerich's 30-day ketogenic cleanse. And I would encourage you to try the exercises, like they say, like Tim Ferriss mentions in the 4-Hour Body.
Yeah.
90 seconds of something like an air squat immediately before you eat, and then an hour and a half after you eat. Give it a shot.
Hey, you know what? Do push-ups. Squats are great. There's nothing wrong with squats using your own body weight. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, if you want to develop muscle strength, upper body muscle strength, hey, man, get on the floor. Don't use your knees. And if you're again, you got to work up to it. Don't just don't just rock these off, because I can get down and knock out 50 push-ups right now, even though that.
Show us, Wade.
Well, We're
Show
on
us
camera,
what-
right? Yeah, I can. I mean, it's not a problem. But to do about 50 push-ups takes me about 90 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's my point, is that if you can get down and rock out 50 push-ups, I think that's a great idea. I'm going to try that. I'm gonna do 50 push-ups after an hour and a half after I've eaten, because I do my HIIT training before I eat, and then I'll do that. That's fine.
Well, something like an air squat, though, is an isotonic exercise, where you're not going to, if you did 50 push-ups 3 times a day before you ate, and then 3 times a day, an hour and a half after
I don't
you
eat that
ate.
many times, though. I never eat breakfast.
Okay. Well, then you're fine. I don't want you to tear up your muscles without ever having to rest.
Hey, you know what? The United States Army, I'm telling you, when I was in infantry school, we were doing that like every hour.
Push-ups all day, every day.
Get down, give me 20, Private. And I'm going to go again. I was 18 years old, a little different. But I mean, it's like, hey, you just look the wrong way. Just get down, give me 25.
Okay, do it, Wade.
I think it's a great idea, Doctor. I'm going to do that because right now I only eat about twice a day anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, but some days I have the 24-hour fast deal going on. Like today is a 24-hour fast thing for me. So I'll do it tonight. I'll try it. I think it's a good idea because I've been trying to think about how I can incorporate a little bit more bodybuilding exercises, bodybuilding in the sense that I want to continue to have upper body strength, and this solves my problem.
I think you would like the book, The 4-Hour Body.
Yeah.
Because one day a week, the guy eats whatever he wants. There's your chicken fry.
Oh, really?
Whatever you want.
All right, cattle bearing, here I come.
There you go.
On my Friday cheat day, right? Oh, my goodness. Dr. Anderson, have a wonderful day. Look forward to seeing you back here on the show next week. Cut the Killer Carbs Facebook, metabolic coaching.net. Stick around. Unconfused coming up next right here on AM 580.
Listen.